Everybody, so it's my pleasure to share this third session of the day, which will lead you to the Indian and Persian and of course of interaction with European astrologer. So our first speaker for the session will be Anupam Sunam, who is going to talk about from Bhārata to Baghdad to Byzantium, interaction and interconnection in Jyotiḥśāstra among Indian, Islamic and European astrologers. The floor is yours.
Thank you to Dr. Nicholas Campion and all the organizers. It is a difficult presentation for two reasons, because it is very long, but I will try to skip many slides, particularly the second half of the presentation. And also because Indian astrology is always slightly difficult, and if you are not much aware about the methods of Indian astrology, so then forgive me, you can ask questions personally to me later. So I will just start. So this presentation is mainly about the evolution of ordinary astrology. That is, in Sanskrit it is called Prashna Jyotish. Prashna is literally questions, and this title is just for teasing my hero, late David Pingree, because he wrote a book titled Babylon to Bikaner. So I thought that it is a good moment to present something like this. So So for this presentation, I am indebted to two people, two of my heroes. One is David Pingree, who worked, I think, he was the greatest astrological scholar, academician, who worked mainly, particularly on India. He worked everywhere, but in India, his work is the most notable. And it always inspires me, as he said that he had published a census of Sanskrit texts in astronomy and astrology. It is in 5 volumes, and in 1981 he said that there are more than 100,000 manuscripts in India on astronomy and astrology, and many are just lying there in different libraries. They are not published, not edited. So he just hoped that people will come forward and do some work on those manuscripts. So I am working on one of the manuscripts. And another person is here. So he always complained that the Indian astrology is very famous. People in their daily lives in India, people use astrology every day, but there is not much academic contribution from the Indian side. So this presentation is a kind of part of my ongoing DPhil research in Oxford, and I am basically working on Jyotiḥśāstra, the evolution of Jyotiḥśāstra, Indian astrology, and its connections with all other cultures. And the core output of this research is the critical edition, translation and commentary on a text called Brihad Yatra. And this is the biggest text on military astrology. So I'm working on that text. Already there were 3 editions of this text. One by obviously David Pingree, but all these editions were very faulty. And 2 of the editors, Vasant Pandit in 1952 and David Pingree in 1973, they hoped that someone will take this job again, because they had only 2 manuscripts, and both of those manuscripts were incomplete. Right now I have more than 20 manuscripts, and I am still searching for more, and many of them, almost 10, are complete. So I was fortunate that I am doing this work. And again, you can see that I have written Vasant Varah Pandit and David Varah Pandit. So Varah Mihira was the greatest astronomer and astrologer from India in the 6th century. Vasant Pandit was the fan and devotee of Varah Mihira, so he always called himself Vasant Varah Pandit, and David Pinigadi was another Varah Mihira because government of India gave him that title, modern Varah Mihira. So he was very happy about it. So this is these are the manuscripts of that text, Yatra. I will just keep skipping. So first part is the evolution of Jyotiḥśāstra in India. Many of you know that Jyotiḥśāstra, it literally means science of light. And so in the Indian subcontinent, it all started with the Vedic culture, because the Vedic people, they wanted to, they were busy people. They always were busy in doing sacrifices, and so they need something based on astronomy for determining the auspicious moment for those sacrifices. We don't know much about the Indus Valley civilization. We have some Indus seals which indicate some astronomical observation, like this is this particular seal 420 from Mohenjo-daro is particularly about the Pleiades star system, the 7 stars. Obviously, I don't have much time to comment on that, but probably some time later. And so in Indian astrology, Jyotiḥśāstra, it is classically divided into 3 parts. One is Ganita, Samhita, and Hora. So astronomy, or omen, divination or mundane astrology, and Hora, that is horoscope. And again, the Hora part is divided into 3 parts. That is Jataka, that is natal astrology, Yatra, that is military astrology, and Vivah, that is marriage. So this Prashna-shastra, it is technically the part of Hora, the horoscopic astrology. David Pinigadi argued that it developed from the idea of lost horoscopes. When someone does not have any horoscope, then astrologers used to cast this kind of horoscope, but his argument is wrong. So how this evolution of Prashna Jyotiḥśāstra happened in India? So the earliest earliest reference of Prashna is in the Yajurveda. It is 1500 BC old text, but it is just the reference, there is no details. And my argument, Pinigadi says that Prashna originated from lost horoscopes, but my argument is that Prashna was already a kind of divination, and when horoscopy came to India from Greece, then both of them got combined. Again, Pinigadi was always obsessed about his own works. So he is, I think, his most notable work on Indian astrology is Yavana Jataka. Literally, it means the horoscopy of Greek horoscopy. So he edited and translated this text, very famous text, very controversial text. Indian scholars don't like it. So because he tried to establish that the Indian astrology is based on Greek astrology. It is still controversial, but I don't see any point in countering that idea. So in Yajurveda, Prashna was already referred. During Buddha's time, Buddha condemned astrology. He condemned 60 types of divinations, so Prashna was one of them. I am not talking here about the Jain astrology, which is very advanced, and there was a separate parallel for the astrology in Jain system that is called Sorodaya, or the questions based on alphabets. So my professor is doing the critical edition of one of the oldest texts on Prashna Vyakarana, but I am not talking about that. And another historical reference of Prashna-shastra is in Arthashastra, Kautilya Arthashastra, who was the prime minister of Mauryan king Chandragupta. Chandragupta was the contemporary of Seleucus Nicator. Seleucus also referred, the historians of Seleucus, they also have referred some of the Prashna development in the Indian subcontinent and Iran. The first astrological reference of Prashna-shastra is in Garg Samhita. It is an unedited, untranslated text. I have just started its edition. It will take at least 5-10 years. There are few groups, Indian scholars, foreign scholars who are trying to work on this, but they have not done it yet. And So the first Indian text on Prashna Jyotisha or astrology, Pinigiri says that there are 10 chapters in Yavan Jataka. He is right, but he missed that point that there is another parallel text totally dedicated to Jyotiḥśāstra, that is by Bhārata. And Bhārata is referred a lot by Varahamihira. When there is a contradiction between Yavaneshwara and Bhārata, then Varahamihira always prefer Bhārata. So of late, Prashna Jyotisha became the most popular branch of astrology, and you can gauge its popularity by the fact that the most important or most popular ordinary astrology text in India, that is called Shat Panchashika. It was written by Varahamihira's son. His name was Prithviyashas. There are many manuscripts which say that it was written by Varahamihira himself. So this is the most popular ordinary astrology text. It means 56 questions, and there are more than 100 unique copies of this manuscript in India and abroad. So more than any astrological text. So from, if you see the history of Prashna Jyotisha, so from 100 CE to 1900 CE, you can see that almost in every century there was some important Prashna text for the astrology. I have just listed 25 of them. Pinigiri had listed around 20. I have just added a few. Go to that, and these are all those 25 Prashna manuscripts. In India, astrology was always promoted by the kings. That's why astrology has this very long, continuous tradition in India, unlike West. And so everyone, all the kings, whatever be the religion of that king, he was promoting astrology. So this is a painting from Akbar's court. Was the greatest Mughal king, and so he has a royal astrologer named Nilkantha, a very famous astrologer. Whenever Akbar used to invade any territory, so Nilkantha used to draw the Prashna chart or the inception chart. We have historical evidence about that. There was the Hindu king Bhoj Parmara, who was a great astrologer. He had written almost 20 books on different types of astrology. Then Ballal Sen from Bengal, he has written on Indian astrology. Chandeshwar Thakur from Mithila, he has written on ordinary astrology, still unpublished, unedited text. Then there was Firoz Shah Tughlaq. He got Brihat Samhita translated in Persian. Brihat Samhita was the greatest text by Varahamihira, and Akbar himself. So as I said that he used Nilkantha's services. But other than Nilkantha, I mean, in his court there were many astrologers. There were Greek astrologer, Persian astrologer, Muslim astrologer. His biographer Abul Fajr has given 4 horoscopes of Akbar. It was created by 4 different genres of astrologers. And Varahamihira is I said he was the greatest. He was a kind of systemizer who amalgamated the Greek part of astrology and the Indian part of astrology, and so he had influence from Ptolemy, Bacchus Valens, or Yavaneshwar. He directly does not name them, but obviously you can see the influence. Again, there was he invented a kind of philosophical idea, because he had to create the philosophical basis of astrology. And then what he did, that he combined another theory of destiny from Indian philosophy, that is karma theory, and he very beautifully combined horoscope with karma, and he said that the horoscope is nothing but just the representation of your past life. So he did, in that way he was not believing in any causation theory. So for him, planets were just the representative of karmic forces. And so he has written many books, many texts are lost. I am trying to reconstruct many texts, but yeah. And as Pinigiri says that he had influence on Syriac and Persian astrologers, Theophilus of Edessa, Nasrallah, and Abu Masar, and Bonatti, and other people. And so it is surprising that we don't find any dedicated text on Prashnashastra by Varahamira himself. Probably because his son wrote on that thing, probably he did not write. But in Brihad Yatra, we get a dedicated chapter on Prashna. And I will just focus on this part, and then I will again skip. So I am responding to few of the arguments. So David Pingree argued that Persian astrology or Yatra astrology, the military astrology and ordinary astrology was the kind of Indian invention. It was very generous of him. Otherwise, he always used to say that either it is Greek or Babylonian or Mesopotamian. So, but he did not find any evidence to support that it was Greek invention or Babylonian invention. So he said that it was Indian invention. Many people did not like it, but Pingree said that he explained the difference between the inception and Prashna, so he also argued that this is the core techniques of ordinary astrology. It comes from the natal astrology. And he clearly said that it is different from Ketarchic astrology, because Ketarchic astrology is basically Muhurta system. And so we have to understand the difference between Muhurta and Prashna, that is Ketarchic astrology and ordinary astrology. Because there was a French scholar who wrote a history of Greek astrology, and he said that Ketarchic horoscopes and birth stars are fundamentally different, and probably he was thinking that there was some import in, he is Dr. Campion, and again he is sitting with some women gypsy astrologers in Chennai asking questions. So Nick Campion has argued against David Pingree, and he says that Pingree's evidence is disputed, and it's a general belief that the first evidence of Russian ordinary astrology comes from Dorotheus, and he repeats that same argument. But David Pingree argued that this fifth chapter of Dorotheus' book is the later Persian interpolation, so historical issue is not settled, so I am responding to Dorian here because she has written a brilliant article on the history of questions in 2025, and it kind of, because I was already working on this thing, so I am trying to respond to some of her arguments. So she is basically writing against David Pingree's argument that it was Indian invention. So and she has given the whole history, but in her arguments, again, David Pingree's argument stands that the fifth chapter of Dorotheus is disputed. But the main problem is that I have seen her article, and in that this origin of questions in astrology. So she has listed a number of astrologers from pre-Dorotheus era. But if you see their work, it is more related to inceptions than question, because the question and inception both are very correlated subject, so sometimes we get confused that what is ordinary astrology and what is inceptional astrology. As I don't have much time here, so I will not talk about that much, but so again there is another scholar, Benjamin Dykes, who says that there is no influence of Varahamira on Theophilus of Edessa and etc. But Pingree argued, Pingree gave evidence. Pingree said that compare the chapter 2 of Theophilus with chapter 12 of Varahamira, Brihad and Benjamin Dykes actually ridiculed Pingree that these are false matches, these matches are not there. Only problem with Pingree was that he gave the wrong numbers, And actually he had to say that compare chapter 2 of Theophilus with chapter 2 of Paramira and chapter 13 of Theophilus with chapter 9 of Paramira. And so I am not comparing the whole Brihadiyatra with Theophilus' work. I am giving, I will just skip everything. So I have compared this, particularly this Prashna chapter with Theophilus Mashallah Bonatti work. And you will find a lot of parallels, particularly in Theophilus' work when the questions are related to military astrology. So almost everything is repeated except few things which is very Indian in nature, that the king should approach astrologer with flowers, fruits, gemstone, etc. So this is very Indian type of worshipping model. But many verses are kind of paraphrased in Theophilus of Edessa. So I will just skip all those things. You can ask me later. So there are 35 verses. So just conclusion that so the whole idea of transmission, I don't accept that idea. I'm not only me. I mean the historians like David Brown. They have started telling that this whole idea of transmission, it brings the allegation of cultural bias and misinterpretations. So we should reject this kind of idea that who copied whom, and basically we should focus on more interaction part, and that's why I have even for my DPhil project I have used this word interaction in my thesis title. So I think the history of Jyotiḥśāstra is the best example where we can say that this interaction happened between the best minds of their times, Paramira and Theophilus of Edessa. And Theophilus, if you see Theophilus' work, then you will find he kind of improved Paramira's work on military astrology in his own context. Yeah, so that is it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Anupam, and sorry for, the time was really short, but it was really nice hearing about this interaction of science. So our next speaker will be Jean Arzuomanov. We stayed in India, and interaction with Persian astrology of auspicious hours.
Hello everyone. Thanks to the organizers for this beautiful conference. I'm very happy to present my work in front of this audience in this beautiful place. So today I'm going to present some of the work I've been doing recently at the Max Planck since I joined in November. So I have a dual project which is looking at the history of electional astrology in India, and particularly the influence of Indian electional astrology on the practice of Persian-speaking astrologers in early modern India, and on the other side looking at the almanacs and trying to survey early modern almanacs and also 19th century almanacs in Persian in India, which is something that hasn't been made. So what do I mean here by the Indian science? Oh, sorry, I forgot that this is the order of my slides. So we've mentioned the existence of almanacs, obviously, at different points in this conference. We have to see the almanacs as a very, very fixed form that allows for a modification through the course of history, but it's really interesting to see that a lot of the almanacs that we see up to the 19th century, or even later 20th century, follow a specific pattern that you can already find described in Algeri's classic description of the almanac, which so includes front matter, tables, most of the time constructed from ziges, Margins also are a specific space that it stands in its own right, and according to Al-Biruni, this is something that you see throughout the tradition, and the back matter, which is also allows for a lot of modifications, and which usually includes events such as eclipses that you put at the end of your almanac. So you have in the Persian-speaking scholarship, you have a classical description by Nasiruddin al-Tusi, whose treatise on the almanac was very famous and was commented throughout the medieval and early modern period. And I just want to mention that he has a section on a little mention on what he calls supplementary materials, so Zawaid. What I find interesting about the Zawaid is that he mentioned that these are culturally sensitive materials, which we will vary according to almanacs, according to the country or the people crafting the almanac. And last source that also should be mentioned for the history of almanac making in the Persianate context is Al-Birjandi, whose Bizbab Darmarifat Takfim became the main authority on almanac making in the Persian-speaking world or Persianate world. So, electional astrology has been mentioned a number of times during this conference. In Arabic and Persian, we use the word ikhtiyarat, which means choices, and it's used to determine good and bad moments for the performance of a specific action based on an astronomical configuration. And in treatises, we find the general principles and particulars, which usually include a list of actions and with the right moment in which we can perform them. On the side of Indian astral sciences, we have the Jyotiḥśāstra, which is the science of the moments, the muhurtas, which is a part of Jyotiḥśāstra, so the astral sciences in the Sanskritic context. So the main theory of Jyotiḥśāstra is based on the idea of 5 variables that are going to be used mainly to calculate the days in which a given action is possible. It's called Panchanga, which is in modern India the normal word used for almanac, and that's usually how you designate almanac in a lot of languages in India today. So calculation of these elections according to the Sanskrit tradition is going to be made according to lunar days, lunar mentions, Karanas, which are half titis, half lunar days, weekdays, so one of the 7 days, and the angle between the sun and the moon. So in the history of Ikhtiyarat, it's considered, it's accepted that there must have been an influence of Jyotiḥśāstra onto the Ikhtiyarat tradition, but in truth we don't have a systematic understanding of the Ikhtiyarat tradition and its evolution, so we don't really rely very much in the dark in what concerns the Indian influence of Panchanga over Ikhtiyarat. So, for the earliest descriptions of the Panchanga system are found in Al-Biruni. They are very detailed. He has chapters on the lunar mentions, the angle between sun and moon, the yoga, and the karana. So these half lunar days. And what's very interesting also that he mentioned that he has access to calendars, almanacs that he found in Kashmir, and he complained that they were not very accurate and reliable. So this is what you have in the classic takvim. Usually in the front matter, you're going to present materials that are going to help your reader to find the right elections for your actions. So this is one of the tables that you find, which includes the name of the different actions, such as seeing kings, and the position of the moon onto the zodiac signs, with the 3-level auspiciousness, which is good, middling, and bad. So another classical table that's found in the beginning of almanacs, and so I didn't mention, but really elections are very central in almanac, in the Persianate world, which is here the conjunction, the aspects of the moon in relation to the other planets, and with its specific auspiciousness. Here is what the tables look like, so we move a bit on in the classical almanac. This is a Safavid example. And here I want to start with the first trace of the influence of Jyotiḥśāstra on Islamic astrology. So here is the left side of the typical almanac. And it's on the right side you're going to find the position of the moon in relation to the other planets with the specific symbols that are going to say if it's in which aspect it lies, and you can refer back to the table to interpret the information that you find here. It would be easier to understand than. So what I'm interested in here is the Al-Bust, which is at the far end of the table after the notes. So Al-Bust is already described by a number of classical scholars. And Al-Kindi is the first known to mention it, the boost, but it doesn't mention it by name. It mentions a similar type of hour. I'm going to describe it in a few minutes, but it's probably taken from the Sanskrit Vishti, which is one of the inauspicious karanas, and particularly the one karana that you want to avoid initiating any action in. So, Al-Bust. So, according to Al-Birjandi, a 15th century scholar, so these are the Bust hours. Indian sages have set a circle which is divided into 7 parts. They have attributed each part to one planet and named it the Bust of this planet. The circle starts from the time of the true new moon, and the first 12 seasonal hours are connected to the sun. And so it continues with the other planets. And Birjani concludes his description of the Bust as they consider, Indian scholars, Indian sages, these Bust hours are scorched hours, and these hours are abhorred in elections. So the first time I came upon the Bust hours was looking at theoretical texts, and so Luis mentioned this, how it's interesting to compare obviously between the practical side of astrology, and then obviously almanac stands for what's going to be used in a daily basis. And I was surprised to see that they were omnipresent, really, in Persian almanacs. So, continuing. Oh, there's a bit of, but it's not too bad. So I come back to the Bust later on. But this is the first layer. We imagine it happens before the Abbasid period. In the Abbasid period, maybe it's a Sasanian also a channel. We don't really know anything about the exact influence of these concepts and how they transited. So there seems to be new additions to the science of ikhtiyarat over time. One that is we have a bit of understanding of is the Sukur Yıldız, which is a Turkic travel advice, which is an imaginary star that revolves 3 times across the 30-day Turkic month, and in 10 directions. And it's, for example, mentioned by the first Mughal Emperor Babur is in memoirs, and it's in the context of a war, and you should never have it in front of you during battle. And you find this Sukur Yıldız quite systematically in almanacs in Persian and in India as well. And here's an example from an almanac from Samarkand, which is kept in North India. So you see here the different dates on which the imaginary star is going to be, in which direction the imaginary star Sukur Yıldız is going to be located. Another interesting, I call it Mongol Timurid addition. I have no idea when this came to the Persianate tradition. It's from the first reference I found is in Hussein Kashifi's text on ikhtiyarat and elections. It's part of a volume of work of 7 volumes. We only have the election volume. And here he has a chapter on the elections of the chakra of the yoginis. This subject has full origin amongst Indians, since for the election of every important action that happens, such as traveling, moving, meeting with kings and emperors, starting actions, they have to keep this yogini chakra over their left hand or behind the back, so that their actions may be continuously excellent and blessed. It is to the Indians what Sukuryulduz is to the Turks. Every day it appears in one of the directions of the world, and one must write in a specific hour during that day. Here I made a little note, so we have an equivalent, not an exact equivalent of the yogini chakra, but we have the idea in Sanskrit astrology that there are 8 yoginis that are situated in the sky, and according to the direction in which those yoginis are, you will have to travel on different dates. So it's obviously influenced, but it's not the exact yogini chakra. There's no yogini chakra means a circle. I didn't mention that. Here is the diagram that's found in Kashifi's work that exactly represent the idea that you should travel on specific hours, on specific days, because of the location of this yogini. Here is a later almanac that has the yogini chakra on the left side and the Sukuryulduz on the middle side, in the middle. So you can see that they're used together to determine times of travel. Here is a later almanac that was made for the Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, king of Awadh, and here is the yogini chakra, Chakare Yogini. So here it's an interesting example. You could imagine reading a Kashifi that maybe it's something that's going to be found in the source but not going to be used practically, but no, it's something that's omnipresent in the almanacs. And I don't know about Iranian almanacs. I wonder if that's something that's going to also be found in Iran. Another influence from, again, Mongol Timurid, I don't really know, is the the Celtic hours of the yogi religion, which basically have 2 inauspicious hours each day. I wonder if Celt might be coming from Sanskrit Lagna, which is inauspicious. We have the word in Albiruni, but it's not the description that's made later on. And I found the description again in Kashifi. So, this is the second period, and now we have a third period, which is the Mughal period, where we have like a wide interpretation of Jyotiḥśāstra, the Indic science of elections, into the practice of Arabic, Persian-trained monagems. However, this is a short survey I've been starting. We really see the presence of Panchanga in Persian almanacs in India in the 19th century. Before that, it's very sparse. I only have one, but I suspect there will be much more. And so, an early example is going to be more of a comparative work by an astrologer on the system of nakshatra and the system of Arabic lunar mentions. But it's not found in the tables themselves. It's more of an intellectual analysis of the 2 systems. Here is an example of election tables. It's not a table as with the figures. It's a simplified election table, so it's easier to read, and you can it's going to basically give you for each day which hours within which they are good for certain actions. What I found interesting in this manuscript is that he had both the Persian system, the Furs system, and the Indian system together. So it's quite a good example of sort of the possibility for an astronomer to resort to for one time to either the interpretation according to Persians and the interpretation according to Indians. What I found interesting is in this context of the Mughal period, the boost hours are being reinterpreted because they come, after all, from, I understand, in that way at least, from Jyotiḥśāstra. And that's exactly how they see it themselves in the early 17th century. So according to Mullah Farid, who was the astronomer of Shah Jahan, imperial astronomer, early 17th century, the boost hours are called in their language Badra, and there they count in titis. So that Badra happens after 3.5 titis. It starts from the new moon, which is the beginning of their month. However, they don't write down the boost at the beginning and the end of the month. So here you see 3.5 titis. It really corresponds to the 7 cycles of the boost hours, which is 7 times 12 hours. And but here in lunar days, not in solar days. Here is an example of how Bhādra is finding its way and replacing boost in tables, election tables. Here, so you see the boost, the Bhādra here, and Tata Shua, which is also another concept from Persian Islamic electional astrology. So here I just wanted to emphasize that the Bhādra is being integrated into the usual framework of Ikhtiyarat, Islamic Ikhtiyarat. And Amavas mentions the new moon. Here is another example for the month of Fravardin Ilahi from 1801, Delhi. Here it's very interesting because you have the typical setup that we saw from the Safavid period, but you have the boost as well. But then he adds all this section, which is the Panchang section. So it's added on to the classical almanac. And you have the titis, the nakshatras, the yoga, the Bhādra, with the beginning of the Bhādra and the end of the Bhādra. What's really interesting is obviously at the beginning of the lunar month, the boost and Bhādra are going to be aligned. Here, which is totally in keeping with the description of Mullah Farid, you don't have it mentioned for the new moon, even though it's a Bhādra hour. But there, you have the boost and the Bhādra are going to be aligned, which is very interesting because I understand why in the Mullah Farid in the 17th century they would say, oh wait, Bhādra always sort of matches with boost, so there must be something. And also because it was known among Muslim scholars that it was originally from India, so the interpretation was very easy to make, and it was a right assessment on their part. It's sort of historical astrology, you could call it, sort of awareness of, after all, the influence of Indian astrology over Islamic astrology. Here is tables. I just wanted to show, because we have a long history of the adaptation of Indian astral sciences into Persian. I just wanted to show an example of the late 18th century, where you have, again, these boost hours that are being described by Abu Said al-Husseini al-Rezawi. And what's interesting is he's using the same spelling of boost here, but he's using a specific letter that really indicates that he's translating from Sanskrit Vishti, because this is P, this is not T, it's a retroflex T. So the word boost is really coming full back circle to the original Vishti, which I found very fascinating, that there would have been this sort of philological work almost within the tradition with the inherited boost hours to bring them back to their original Vishti, even though calculation is slightly different. And with this, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. I'm really sorry that I have to interrupt because of time, so it's really fascinating, all this. So our third speaker will be Alexey Arapov, talking about the sacred book of the cosmos as a subject of the Timurid Empire and Renaissance.
So Alexey will give his talk in Russian. So this is the revenge of the Russians, or the opportunity for us to try the subtitles. So anybody who does not understand Russian, you can scan the QR code behind your badge, or if you don't know how to use QR codes, just go to the webpage address that is underneath, livevoice.io, listen 358947. And one of the options is English. You click on the little lines and it's going to start translating.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, greetings. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak at this unique conference. My research interests focus on the history of Timurids. This also determines the focus of my report. I apologize that my English is slipping, so I intend to speak in Russian. On the screen is the QR code with a link to the text of my speech in English. I will begin. Историко-географические координаты моего доклада «Тимуридская империя. Временные эпоха султана Шахруха, сына Амира Тимура, явившая в первой половине XV века феномен Тимуридского ренессанса». Под книгой космоса понимаю и рассмотрю здесь представления о небе, выраженные в письменных текстах, математических построениях и визуальных образах в различных аспектах. Звездном, знания о звездах, созвездиях, планетах, мистическом, религиозно-мифологическом восприятии неба, астрологическом исчислении, интерпретации влияния планет, математическом, геометрии и хронометрии движения сфер. Книга звезд. Исламское видение звездного неба было канонизировано в X веке в книге неподвижных звезд Ас-Суфи. В его астрономике, иконографии, картографии развивалась греческая традиция, упорядочившая хаос небесных светил в систему созвездий и планет, наделенных формой, именем и мифологическим сюжетом. Это трансформировало космос в мифологическую сцену. Мирза-Улугбек, правитель Мавераннахра и устроитель Самаркандской обсерватории, пользовался каталогом Ас-Суфи, изготовленным по его заказу. Он хранится в Национальной библиотеке Франции и маркирован печатью принца смиренный раб Аллаха Мухаммад Тарагай, сын Шахруха, сын Тимура Гурагана. Рядом золотая каллиграмма определяет назначение рукописи для библиотеки великого султана Улугбека Гурагана. В своем зидже Улугбек сообщает, что использовал звездные координаты Ас-Суфи, но уточнил их в ходе наблюдения. Обращает на себя внимание портретное сходство царя Цефея в самаркандской рукописи с Улугбеком на миниатюре из галереи Фрира. Улугбек вписал себя здесь в звездную сценографию в роли царственной персоны. Здесь все участники конференции хорошо представляют себе греко-арабскую карту звездного неба, где царь Цефей подбирает ногой полярную звезду, фактически северный полюс. Тем самым Улугбек наделил себя атрибутом властителя звезд, статуса астрократа. Небо мистическое. В той же библиотеке хранится рукопись «Мирадж-Нама» о вознесении пророка к трону Аллаха в сопровождении архангела Джабраила. Она создана в Герате по заказу султана Шахруха. Мираж пророка вошел в доктрину ислама и по теологическому значению уступает лишь Корану. Уникальность гератской рукописи в 60 миниатюрах, картинами космоса, рая и ада. Они живописуют вознесение пророка на 7 небес, идея которых была воспринята из греческой науки с ее планетарными сферами. Высшее небо представляется здесь как чистый свет, в котором растворились пророк и архангел. Дальше было дерево крайнего предела, Сидрат аль-Мунтаха, ветвь, уходящая в высший мир. Здесь Джабраил покинул пророка. Это была граница между доступным и трансцендентным. В Мираж-Нама Шахруха небеса не связаны с планетами, но последние проявляют себя здесь через пророков. Адам встречен на первом небе, то есть на сфере Луны, ведущей рождением и началом. Прекрасный Юсуф на третьем небе Венеры, мудрейшие Муса, Ной и Енох на шестом небе Юпитера, Ибрахим на верхнем небе Сатурна. Каждое из небес охранялось своими ангелами-стражами и было населено тысячами ангельских созданий. Среди них великие ангелы, воплощая сущности небесного мира. Петух, ангел времени и космических ритмов, снежно-огненный ангел, равновесие противоположностей, ангел с 10 тысячами крыльев, порождающий ангелов-искатель воды, ангелы с 70 головами, славящие Аллаха. Вся эта иерархия, трон Аллаха, небеса, пророки, ангелы проецировалась на империю Тимуридов и освещала власть Шахруха. В 1409-1414 годах претензии на верховную власть в империи выдвинул Тимурид Искандар Султан, правивший в Ширазе, Язде и Исфахане. Он позиционировал себя как мессия и носитель эзотерического знания. Свою легитимность он подкреплял теологическими диспутами с ведущими исламскими интеллектуалами шейхом Шахом Нематулой и Сеидом Шарифом Джурджани. Показательно, что в фокусе дискуссий была также тема миража. Был ли он реальным или духовным, какова природа ангелов, почему даже архангел не может преодолеть предел космоса. То есть право на власть оказалось связано с компетенцией в доктринальных вопросах исламского космоса. Джурджани представлял рационалистическое учение Калама, интегрировавшее греческую логику и метафизику в исламское богословие. И поэтому в его идейном поле, как и в ученом кругу Искандара, небеса, как божественное чудо, не противоречили астрономии. Согласно Джурджани, небесные сферы – это геометрическое построение, и астрономия не нуждается в физических фикциях Аристотеля и Птолемея. Искандар первым среди потомков Амира Тимура собрал при своем дворе и включил в круг правящей элиты выдающиеся ученые и деятели искусства. В этом собрании формировалась новая теология власти, опиравшаяся на астрологическое знание и ориентированная на иранские мусульманские элиты с их надеждами на благословенного звездами султана Мурзи. Принципиальное значение имел в этой связи гороскоп самого Искандара, декларирующий космическое право принца на царственную судьбу. Этот объемный труд на 86 листах уникален своей математической скрупулезностью и живописным оформлением. Он подготовлен в 411 году в Ширазе коллегией астрологов во главе с Махмудом Аль-Каши и хранится в Институте истории медицины Велкома в Лондоне. Об этом сегодня уже говорил наш коллега Хамид Бакул из Института Планка в Берлине. Хотелось бы обратить внимание на роль Кашана. Наверное, он заслуживает специального исследования по тому количеству астрономов, астрологов, математиков, лишь среди Сиадина Каши, который представил этот групп. Сам гороскоп по своему содержанию – это не просто предсказание, а целая программа власти. Резюме гороскопа сведено в космограмме, в основе которой конфигурация планет при рождении принца 25 апреля 1384 года. Асцендент в Козероге, Венера в Рыбах, Солнце в Тельце, в Близнецах Меркурий, Юпитер, Луна и Сатурн, Марс в Скорпионе. Космограмму Искандара оберегают крылатые ангелы с дарами на рождение принца, коронами и блюдами, символами власти и богатства. Они провозглашают указания звезд и как защитники планет управляют их влиянием. Космограмма здесь проспект будущего, а также композиция символов и шифров, наделенная свойством магического оберега, способным, как записано в самом тексте Аль-Каши, отразить некоторые из злых сил, влияющих на судьбу. Ядро космограммы образует матрица из 6 колец, разбитая на зодиакальные сектора. Каждое кольцо фиксирует достоинства планет, домицилии, экзальтации, термы, деканы, триплициты, дориджаны. На основе этих данных в тексте определяются доминирование планет и знаков в их иерархии. В карте Искандара Марс занимает первое место, 3 победы, Солнце, Юпитер, Меркурий по 2. Уже это задает тип правителя. Воитель, уравновешенный качествами царя, мудреца и любимца фортуны. Вычисляя будущее принца, Аль-Каши определил также халадж, фактор жизненной силы, и к отходу планеты, управляющей судьбой. У Искандера вывелось 3 хиладжа сразу: Солнце, жребий фортуны и Джозе Сидигея, лунно-солнечные ритмы. Они как бы дополняли друг друга, но конфликтуя рассеивали его жизненную энергию. Я передаю тот текст, который есть в содержании гороскопа. К отходу Венера направляла по пути красоты, гармонии, сиборитства. Управитель асцендента Сатурн отвечал за закон, но так как он не был доминантен, то принц был уязвим в легитимности и удержании власти. Такая космическая карта уже предсказывала внутренние противоречия судьбы. Несмотря на современный научный скепсис, гороскоп Аль-Каши с высокой точностью описал тип Искандара как правителя. Венера проявила себя в утонченной культуре и наслаждениях, доминирующий Марс побуждал к воинственности, но, не являясь халаджем, не стал стратегическим фактором. Обладая военным талантом и ученостью, династическими правомочиями, Искандар не проявил целеустремленности. В противостоянии с Шахрухом он потерпел поражение и погиб спустя 5 лет после воцарения. Здесь космос проявил себя как обстоятельство непреодолимой силы, задающее траекторию политической судьбы. В собрании Муншат Шараф-ад-Дина Али-Язди сохранилось предисловие к труду, это астрономический труд Джами Султани, написанное самим Искандар Султаном. Он утверждает в нем, что через исламский литризм или науку о буквах Илм-аль-Харуфи он постиг все науки и их вершины, науку о единстве Илм-аль-Таухид. Согласно литрийской доктрине, история и воля Бога могут быть прочитаны в буквах, числах Корана, божественных именах. В соединении с астрологией, дающей контроль над судьбой, это знание ключевое для власти. Правитель же представляет собой интерпретатора космического и божественного текста. Литрийская наука в конце XIV – начале XV века находилась на подъеме благодаря идеям каирского пророка Сиида Афлати. Под его влиянием в исламской ученой среде оформилось интеллектуальное движение, использовавшее имя научного сообщества X-XI века Ихван ас-Сафа. Лидером его восточного крыла в первой трети XV века был ученик Афлати, оккультный философ Ибн Турка, главный идеолог эритизма в кругу Искандара. Ихван ас-Сафа II представили литрийское учение как синтез античного и пророческого наследия и концептуальную основу теологии власти. В этой парадигме космос – говорящий субъект, который языком звезд транслирует текст, определяющий судьбы и ход истории. Его прочтение и интерпретация создает матрицу для построения мировой империи. Искандар открыто программировал эти взгляды, заявив, что синтетическое знание литризма, астрономии, астрологии наделило его гримуаром империи. Тем самым при покровительстве Искандара в исфаханском кружке во главе с Ибн Турка оформился герметифический проект от греческого герменетия истолкования. В его рамках империя Тимуридов мыслилась как империя экзегет. Империя, способная читать и сотворять космический текст, вписывая себя в пророческую историю. Искандара вдохновила роль астрократа, предвестника или воплощения Мессии, чье правление имеет эсхатологический характер и завершает космический тип. Ориентация на эсхатологические пророчества востребовала литрические алгоритмы извлечения скрытого содержания священных текстов, священных книг Корана и космоса, что было синтезом с одной стороны вычисления, с другой инициатического прочтения. Для Корана использовалась псевдоматематика арабского текста, для космоса астрологическая геометрия. Для корректной интерпретации нужны были точные астрономические цифры. В связи с чем другой кашанец, Гияс-1 Каши, пересчитал данные XIII века Зиджи эль-Хани и предложил Искандару выверить их наблюдениями в астрономии. Тимуридский герменевтический проект, начатый Искандаром, прервался с его гибелью. В этот период Ибн Турка, осмысливая произошедшее, написал свой Magnus Opus Китаб аль-Малахиш, где доработал литрийские концепты, адресуя их правящей семье Шахруха. Проект возобновился уже под покровительством сына Шахруха Мирза-Улугбека. Его учителем стал Казыза Даруми, также ученик Сиида Афлати, связанный с исфаханским кружком Ибн Турка. Благодаря Руми Улугбек достиг высочайшей компетенции в математике и астрономии и утвердил их главными науками в созданном им медресе в Самарканде. Важным мотивом обращения литрийского круга Ибн Турка Руми к Улугбеку был потенциал его натальной карты. Дата рождения Улугбека известна – 28 марта 1394 года. Историк Езди сообщил, что градусом его гороскопа был Лев, а владыкой Солнца. Солнце было в экзальтации, в Овне, предопределяя ученость и высокую должность. Отсюда исчисляется, что доминирует Юпитер, 3 победы, ниже на ступень Солнце, Луна, Сатурн, Венера, Хиладж Солнца к отходу Марса. По гороскопу приоритет Улугбека – познание космоса. Юпитер дает смысл правления, высшее знание и мудрость, Сатурн придает ему системность и точность, Марс обеспечивает усилия реализацию замысла, Меркурий выступает инструментом вычисления, научного мышления, Венера добавляет утонченности, гармонию, формируя культурную среду двора. Луна же вносит элемент переменчивости и политическую неопределенность. Все это задает тип правителя, более занятого истиной, чем властью. В 1427 году в Герате произошло покушение на султана Шахруха, в котором обвинили хуруфитов. Это привело к политической дискредитации литризма. По подозрениям оказались Ибн Турка, его соратник из Шараф-1 Али-Езди. В этих обстоятельствах герметический проект утратил политическое значение и сфокусировался на математическом астрономическом знании. Преемником Исфаканского кружка стал ученый круг, собравший при дворе Улугбека в Самарканде Руми, Гиясэддин и Муэддин Акаши, Али Кушчи. Улугбек создал институцию, восходящую к модели обсерватории от Туси в Мараге. Он включал обсерваторию, медресе, библиотеку и обеспечивал полный цикл астрономических наблюдений. Самаркандская обсерватория превзошла Марагу по уровню инструментов, точности координат звезд и математическому аппарату. Европейская наука достигла сопоставимого уровня лишь спустя 1,5 века. Результатом наблюдений, сведенных в таблице Зиджи Улугбека, стали наиболее точной числовой базой астрологических расчетов 15-16 веков. Вслед за Джурджани ученые обсерватории Улугбека отказались от физической фикции сфер и представили космос как чисто математическую конструкцию. Следуя литрийской парадигме чтения космоса, Самаркандская обсерватория свела вычисление небесных движений к табличному алгоритмическому языку Зиджи Улугбека. Несмотря на астрологический мотив, это был принципиальный шаг, открывающий путь к метаязыку формул и функций современной науки. Тем самым научное сообщество Улугбека перевело литрийскую философию Ихван ас-Сафава на язык математики. Корпус идей алгоритмов Самаркандской обсерватории трансформировал эзотерический контекст книги космоса в фундамент прочного естествознания. С трагической гибелью Улугбека в 1949 году Тимуридский герменевтический проект был практически свернут. Герменевтическая идея срезонировала не только в Ширазе, Исфахане и Самарканде, и не только в области астрономии и астрологии. Восприятие космоса как текста сыграло роль универсального культурного кода, объединившего самые разные направления творчества. Это запустило процесс тимуридского ренессанса в искусстве, поэзии, архитектуре, музыке, историографии, бюрократии, что выдвинуло империю Тимуридов в число первых монархий эпохи Возрождения. Обратим внимание на феномен тимуридской книги, шедевры которой сохранились во многих музеях мира. Вершиной тимуридского книгопроизводства были мастерские Китабхана Байсункара в Герате и Ибрагим Султана в Ширазе. По сложности организации они были сопоставимы с обсерваторией Улугбека. В них работали каллиграфы, миниатюристы, переплетчики со всей империи. Сохранилось 17 манускриптов в мастерской Байсункара. Главным шедевром Шираза был труд Зафар-Наме Шарафуддина Али-Езди. Все это сложные книги, не сводимые к текстовой информации, пропорции, ритм, язык, каллиграфии, структурирование страниц, образы миниатюр становятся здесь самостоятельными каналами интерпретации. В результате рукопись превращается в сложную семиотическую систему с визуальным метаязыком многослойного прочтения. Таким образом, одним из ключевых факторов тимуридского ренессанса становится герменевтическая культура прочтения откровения истории космоса. Здесь автор создавал, а читатель был способен читать рукописные книги, архитектурные ансамбли, придворные ритуалы, музыкально-поэтические практики, как многоканальные семиотические системы. Эти объекты могут быть поняты как космограммы, они не столько рефлексируют мир, сколько воспроизводят его структурные принципы, делая его доступным для чтения. В Резюме. В тимуридском культурном пространстве первой половины 15 века священная книга космоса осмысляется как совершенное творение и тайна, наряду с Кораном определяющие формы знания, власти и духовной жизни. Литризм создал теоретическое основание герменевтического проекта, в рамках которого космос, история и откровение понимались как единый текст эсхатологического значения. Этот проект разворачивался через построение империи и через Ренессанс, как возрождение и синтез греко-арабской научной традиции, иранской царской идеологии и исламской учености на концепции Ихвана Сахадра. Центральным инструментом этого тимуридского проекта стала книга в широком смысле, рукопись, архитектура, ритуал и другие формы, выступающие как многомерные тексты и медиумы интеллектуальной коммуникации. Тем самым тимуриды утвердили модель империи как экзегета космического текста, воспринятую и развитую их политическими преемниками, османами, сефевидами и великими моголами. В Самаркандской обсерватории книга космоса как основополагающее знание получила выражение в таблично-алгоритмическом языке Сиджи-Улугбека. Тимуридские научные парадигмы математизации космоса через Али-Кущи османских ученых ретранслировались в Европу, неся свой вклад в формирование языка и концептов науки 16-17 века. An inclusion is taken of my graduate for organizing this fascinating scientific event, and as also in my respect, I would like to make a gift. I ask Nicholas Campion to accept as a gift for the Sophia Central Library an English language edition of these books, which was prepared by my publishing house and printed here in Istanbul in limited edition 100 copies.
The two other speakers, Jean and Anupam, coming for 2-3 questions. We're a little bit late on the program, but still. And thanks to all of you, it was so really wonderful pattern. Unfortunately, so the time was short. Okay, so questions? Yeah? Okay.
Hello. I have a question for Anupam and Jean. We know about the Panchang technique in Indian astrology, and we know also Western lunar calendar. But there is also the Western lunar calendar system, different system, Panchang and Western. And the calculations for sunrise and sunset also give different values. And in your opinion, which system is the most effective?
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat the question because we don't understand it so loudly, please?
Okay. And in your opinion, which system is the most effective, and does it depend on which continent you live on?
Again, I think. So, to whom the questions?
Yes. Which system?
Okay.
Well, Panchang on Western lunar calendar.
I don't have a personal meaning, but it was apparent that Munajjims, so Arabic, Persian trained Munajjims in India were very taken by the ikhtiyar portion of Jyotiḥśāstra, which is much more systematic also than the ikhtiyar as a tradition. So I would say because it's such a systematic tradition, it has a much more complex set of parameters. It was considered as very good by Munajjims themselves. That's what I can say.
Thank you. What do you think? Yes?
Open.
So yes, you might answer to that question? Okay. Yeah, as he said that it is a very systematic system. But I think no system is better or greater than any other system. Every system has its own value as per your culture and tradition. So Indian system has its own strength, probably Persian system, even though it is inspired by the Indian system, it would have its own strength.
Do you use systems or no?
Sorry?
Do you use Panchang or lunar calendar or no?
Personally, no, I don't use it.
No, I use Panchang. So I saw in my presentation there was a photo of Dr. Nicholas Campion. So he was basically reading a Panchang there, and that lady was showing Panchang to him, explaining. So in India they use Panchang every day. Probably even people like me, I always see the app, which day it is, and what is the Muhurta or Karana, everything he has explained. So it is a very cultural thing, very part of your day-to-day life every day.
Understand. Thank you very much.
Yes. One other question, please. Oh yeah. One more.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Question to Alexey. Я скажу на русском, потом перейду на английский. Вот про литризм вопрос. Вы говорите, что это способ прочитать текст космоса. То есть была некая непосредственная связь между цифрами, буквы становятся цифрами, цифры становятся планетами, как связь между буквами и космосом выстраивалась в их понимании. I will put the question into English. So the question was about the letterism Alexey used to talk about, and he said that letterism was a way to read the cosmic text. My question is how this scheme was built, from letters to numbers, from numbers to planets, or how it actually worked at that time. Thank you.
Литризм был концептуальным основанием самого принципа того, что космос может быть читаем, что как в Коране, так и в космосе есть скрытые смыслы, которые могут быть извлечены. Если в случае Корана, в случае божественных имен, здесь использовались технологии практики такой псевдоматематики, деления числами и выстраивания неких связей между этими смыслами, то в случае космоса я описывал здесь как минимум 4 направления. Это просто звездная информация, расположение, это мистическое небо, это астрологический текст, это математика высшего уровня. Все это информация о небе, которая может быть прочтена, интерпретирована. То есть сама возможность интерпретации космоса как текста, его прочтение, это на самом деле литризм подтолкнул, в том числе на практическом поле, научном поле обсерватории Улугбека, к тому, чтобы сформировать некий метаязык, которым пользуется современная наука, когда она строит сегодня все представление, все конструкции научные на основе формул, на основе языковых обозначений, на основе комбинации цифр, чисел, соединения абстрактных форм, то есть фактически формируя метаязык. То есть литризм показал это направление, обозначил эту тему, и, наверное, Мы сегодня еще в полной мере не представляем то, что сделал как бы этот научный посыл, формат науки, а на самом деле это некий формат науки, который долгие годы как бы отвергался как средство научного знания, средство достижения.
Okay, then thank you so much for everyone. We have a coffee break until 35? 3:35, so 10 minutes. Yes.
Hello again. We are starting with our final session of the conference, and I'm happy to introduce to you Ribeiro, who will be presenting the book Astrologers at Work. Dorian Greenbaum, she will also be presenting, and Petra Schmidl, she will help in all of this work. Please.
Thank you, everyone. I would promise not to be too long on our presentation. So, what we're presenting is this book, Astrologers at Work, which Dorian fortunately brought her copy with her, so we have a physical book here for when someone who wants to just check, you know, you can check it. So, what is this book about? This book came out of a conference that was made in 2023 in Portugal, in the monastery of Batalha. It's the Tools of the Art, New Perspectives on the History of Astrological Doctrines and Practices, which was organized by the Astro Project, not the Astro Project of in Berlin, but the Astro Project in Portugal, that studies exactly, you know, practices of astrology, techniques of astrology, methodologies, and which was created by Helena Avelar and myself. She was the PI of that. And this had been organized for 2020, if I remember correctly, but then we had COVID, things got postponed, and finally in 23 we managed to get the conference done, but by then Anna had already passed away, so it became a conference in memory of her. This was our wonderful venue, the monastery of Batalha, so the lecture hall was actually inside this wonderful building. It's a way to share for those who were not able to be there with us. There was a participation of 14, 12, I don't remember how many we were. There were many. Yeah, so Dorian and Petra were there, Martin Genstedt, and Stephen van den Broek, and then we just participated online. Everyone else was there in person, fortunately. So
actually, Stephen van den Broek was there.
Stefan Heiden was not there. Stephen van den Broek is there. Yes, all right. And this volume comes out exactly from that conference. So these are the contents. The idea was to introduce the Astro Project. That was the initial idea. Then it became a memorial for honoring Helena. And so each person contributed to an example of practice, of astrological practice in one of their specialty periods. So David just discussed the calculation of the Almutan in medieval Latin astrology. Charles Dorian, with the origins of the question of astrology, I'll pass that to you. Then Charles Burnett edited Zal Ibn Bishar's choice of nuggets of judgment, so the 50 precepts. Then Petra also talked about the Tapsira that she has studied for many years. Then we have Jeffrey Kotick with some techniques of Buddhist astrology, Inception for the Emperor of Zeno by Laszlo, Richard de Fornival Nativity by Jean-Baptiste Baudet, and then Christopher Lucken, who was not present, participated in the paper itself. John of Lubeck's predictions by Stefan Eilin. Marcello Fitu, we have two very good papers on Marcello Ficino's, both from Darrell Redken and from Stephen van den Broek on different topics. Darrell Redken discusses how Ficino practiced astrology and what evidences we have of his practice of astrology, while Stephen van den Broek discusses the elections and his view on elections. Then we have Gunther Osno making, a summary of the problems with horoscopy in terms of errors and mistakes and miscalculations. Then I've had my own contribution with the study of how the system of weighing essential dignities and abilities appears and develops in Europe in the early modern period. And then finally, Susan Ward does a paper on first analysis of the evidences of practice of William Lilly from his practical workbooks. So, in all, we cover a little bit of everything, not everything, but a little bit of everything. So it's a good sum of examples of practice of astrology. And the title, Astrologers at Work, is derived from Helena's own thesis that was published under the title An Astrologer at Work in 15th Century France. So her thesis and her book was an astrologer at work, and here we have astrologers at work in the plural with several examples of astrological practice. So 13 chapters, 14 authors. And now I'll pass on to, to Dorrit and Petra to say a little bit about their impressions of the book as well as authors' chapters.
Well, I first want to say that that conference was something quite special. You saw the picture of the monastery, and one memory that and this has nothing to do with the talks or anything, but it's a memory that I was very fond of. One of the memories that I keep from that conference was being given a tour of the monastery. It was around 5 o'clock in the evening, and Charles Burnett was in church playing the organ, and we were looking at the sun coming through the stained glass window and reflect all its colors on the floor of the nave, and it was a sublime moment, and I will never forget that. It was a very fitting part of that conference as well, because we were because we had had such a wonderful time with all of the talks that we gave, and everyone's talk was on fairly similar subjects, but it all sort of cohered at the end into this great overview of the practice of astrology. And this is discussions of methods and other things. My particular contribution to the volume was called On the Origins of Questions in Astrology. And in it I talked about this from the viewpoint of Western astrology and how astrology came to develop as a practice through the idea of wanting to ask a question about something. And I talked about its relationship or its comparison to things like the oracle tradition, where you have people going to Delphi and asking questions, which to Dona and asking questions. And some of them are very similar to the ones that you see in Gujarati astrology. And I also talked about Dorothy Ziswai, who was the first, the earliest extant astrologer that we have evidence of using, asking a question in astrology. And we know this because Hephaestus Thebes, who's a later astrologer, actually quoted Darkness in the original Greek. So we have not only the Arabic version of Darkness, but we have original Greek quotations via Hephaestus, which actually actually tell you that he's asking a question and having astrology give the answer. So that was my contribution, and Petra can now tell about her contribution.
Thank you, Dorian. I have the very same memory with Ben and Charles that we were sitting down at the one on the road. It fits very nicely to the cool atmosphere of the conference, because right from the beginning when Dorian started with I have a memory that he was one of the very first speakers, and she brought up questions where I thought, oh yeah, all right, that reflects with my ideas, with my questions, with what I'm doing research on about, and I was right from the beginning very happy that we invited me so that I can do another chapter of this Kitab Tafsira of one of my ongoing projects where I publish chapter after chapter when I have time. And it was an interesting thing because I had the possibility to present the election tables in Tafsira, so for the audience has seen Jean's contribution today, so answering questions like, should I plant a tree today, or is it better to play chess? Shall we try first go for swimming, or is it better meet the king? And all these questions are answered in relation to the lunar position, like yes, no, or I don't know. And so I could present this at the conference. It was very nice. I remember the gallery with this nice graffiti arranged there with coffee and cookies. It was just wonderful. But coming back to the elections, and we came up with the question of such a table of elections. Is really a tool for an astrologer, or is it rather kind of an encyclopedic collection of such a thing? And one axis I approached in my article is to look at the elections, how the time is organized. Are you referring to, are we talking auspicious states, or is it not auspicious in the zodiac, depending, or so on and so on? Because this tells you a bit about the expertise you need to use these electoral tables. And so that was my access to my approach to the question if it's a tool for astrologers that works. Thank you for the join you.
Thank you for participating. As you see, the book has a lot of topics, and I would like in the future to repeat this conference at some point, with more contributions. Let's hope it can be done. It is at the core of the idea of the Astro Project and Helena's own work on understanding the practices of astrology, and my work as well. And because these things are usually exceptionally expensive, we can offer you Brill's generosity, a discount code you can use for 45% discount. It's valid until July, so it's available for those who are participating in the conference, both here and online, of course. You just have to scan the QR code or copy, or I would say take a photo of the slide, which is the best way to keep the information. So that's it. I don't want to take too much long. It's been long 3 days, so I will end it here. I don't know if there is questions. Yes, please. Yes, Nick.
Is it available as an ebook?
It is available as a PDF. Brill has that option, either you buy it hardcover or PDF, yes. And I suppose the discount code should work on the PDF as well. There's no reason why not.
Yeah, what do you do the code? What do you buy?
when you buy it, I think there's an option, you know, to put a coupon. Like,
It would be Brill's webpage.
Brill webpage, right?
If you go to the Brill site and put in the title,
Yeah.
if you want to buy it, you can get a print version or a PDF version. Then they usually ask you to pass it back to staff, and you can then use it that way. So allowing you just put a link to the Brill page on the conference page? Oh, okay. Great, thanks.
Well, if there are no questions, I think we can close the show. Thank you.
Well, friends, excuse me. So the time has come to close the conference, and first of all, I want to reflect on the elasticity of time. And the way in which, when you're in an event like this, the ending can seem an impossible duration of time away. When you're in the middle of it, it goes on forever, and when it's come to an end, it's over and past, except for our memories. And of course, the forthcoming publication, which will be available later in the year, to which I hope all our presenters will contribute. So this has been, I think, an extraordinary conference, an extraordinary range of papers. It's very international, speakers from all over the world, attendees from all over the world. We just emailed the University of Wales Trinity St David to let them know that this is possibly the most important collaboration for the university at the moment, and I might just step that up and say it's the most important international collaboration ever, so why not? Let's make the most of this. And so great deep thanks from University of Wales Trinity St David to Yildiz Technical University, who've been great partners, collaborators and hosts, and without them, this would not have happened. So I want to thank the audience as well. The conferences don't happen without audience participation, and of course all the people who joined us online. Now we're going to come to the ritual part of the closing, because there's a lot of people to thank, and I'm going to ask May to help me in that task. So, first of all, I'm going to thank Professor Dr. Aynur Koçak, Head of the Department of Turkish Language and Literature, for all her support and for moderating the first session of the second day. And I'm going to thank as well the Yildiz Technical University representative from the Department of Turkish Language and Literature, Professor Ibrahim Sona, and I would like Professor Sona to come and say a few words.
Dear academicians and researchers, I'm Ibrahim Sona, the representative of the Department of Turkish Language and Literature. First of all, we are honored to organize the Celestial Crossroads Symposium at Yildiz Technical University. Especially, we would like to thank the organizing committee, invited speakers, delegates, and online participants, And then we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Rector Eyüp Debik and his chief advisor Özer Çınar for making these historical plays available for us. Organizing a symposium comes with different duties. Some people work hard behind the scene, while others are more visible in front. Also, we would like to thank Murat Turhan, our communication coordinator, for his efforts, who couldn't participate because he was abroad. And thanks to the head of Turkish Language and Literature Department, Aynur Koçak, and our research assistants, Dr. Zeynep Pınarcan and Damla Eyüpoğlu. There are 7 volunteer students from Turkish Language and Literature Department. They worked hard for 3 days at the registration desk, as whole support and floating support. Thanks to İdil Dodak, Rüeyda Sünmez, Can Koşar, Ali Bozkurt, Naz Dede, Damla Diş, İrem Şahin. Lastly, many thanks to Vedat Çolak, Rasim Abish, Bayram Çakmak, and the assistant students. I hope we were good at hosting. We prepared a booklet for participants. We have 2 historic fountains with Ottoman Turkish inscription on them. The fountain inside was built between 1603 and 1614, and the one outside was built around 1849. We transcribed and translated them to English. Memories are important, so we hope that this little booklet will remind you of us and Yıldız Technical University, Istanbul. You can find the memento on the registration desk. Today we are here for Celestial Crossroads. One day our roads may cross again somewhere else. Thank you very much to everyone for organizing this international symposium.
And so now I need to thank all the student volunteers from the Department of Turkish Language and Literature and for their immense help through the conference. They've been a presence throughout, guiding us, helping us in many ways. So we're going to call them up to the stage for a group photograph, and May will read out their names.
Okay. Rüeyda Sünmez. Naz Dede. İdil Dodak. Can Koşar. Ali Bozkurt. İrem Şahin. And Damla Diş. So we're going to take a group photo with the students and with the chair of the conference, Nicholas Campion. The students have been working really hard behind the scenes. They're creative thinkers, they think out of the box, they're very flexible. They saved us. They really saved this conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, and now I'm going to thank the research assistants from the Department of Turkish Language and Literature.
My turn. Okay, so Dr. Zeynep Pınarcan. And research assistant Damla Eyüpoğlu. Thank you very much. Damna's not here?
Well, I guess.
Okay, so it's just going to be you and me.
Thank you very much.
And now I'm going to thank Dr. Murat. I'm going to thank Dr. Murat Turhan. Dr. Turhan, he's the director of the Office of International Relations here at Yildiz. He helped immensely through the organisation process and regrets that he was unable to attend due to him being abroad at an international education fair. So we missed him very much, but again, on a daily basis, he was involved in the advanced organisation. And then I need to thank Sadatin Atash, Vice Director of the Office of International Relations.
Thank you.
And yes, and now our AV technical team, please come to the stage.
Vedat Çolak Bey.
Oh.
We've been streaming perfect video and audio thanks to them. We've also been all over Turkish news thanks to them.
Because also there's 4 people that in this context, so Helena, please come on.
Always tired.
Francis Kleins was very much involved in the opening stages of the organisation and had to stand out for the day-to-day organisation, but has been always in the background running the website and is still involved in background IT and tech aspects, so we're playing an extremely important role. So on behalf of the University of Wales, Trinity St David, and its patron, thank you all. Who is? Yes. King Charles. And so I now call this conference to a close. So we will meet again somewhere, sometime, someplace.
Actually, we're going to meet at 5 p.m. outside the
So thank you everyone. For the ones that are coming for the Bosphorus cruise, we're
we're going to, the bus will leave at 5 from the parking lot, so we should be there at 4:55, let's say. From the parking lot next to the guest house. The guest house is where we have